Joining me now is Jaclyn. Thank you so much for joining me here at NCBA CattleCon, like we like to call it, in San Antonio. Let's just dive right into it. Tell us a little bit about just how you grew up and how you got involved in the ranching community.
Sure, Kirby. Well, I grew up northeast of Lakeside, Nebraska, a small unincorporated town of about 20 people.
Wow.
I'm the fifth generation that's back on our family operation that was founded in 1888. And I, for the last probably 4 or 5 years, have been equal partners with my dad, Blaine, who's somewhere wandering around this great convention. So it's been a neat venture. We're a commercial Red Angus operation, and I have some purebred Red Angus interest in Uruguay, of all places. But do have a background lot, do some direct to consumer, and then also retain ownership and sell to the big four. So it's great to be here at convention and to be here with you guys today.
I know it's a lot of hard work, and we like to say you got to love what you do, and you obviously do, but day in and day out, and things are ever changing in our industry, you know, from cattle prices to the way beef production is to land prices. There's a lot that goes into it. Can you speak to that a little bit more by, you've got to be kind of your own vet sometimes. You got to be an accountant. You got to be a steward of the land. You also have to manage so many different things. Talk to that.
Yeah, I think there is. You know, there's a couple different ways to look at it. First off, let's talk about the ranch part of it. You know, I mean, we are very demographically challenged where our ranch is located at, and so all of those things that you mentioned and even more, you know, we keep them in house. I mean, it's part of our bottom line, and we learn to become more efficient over time, and I think that's something that is a great attribute to our operation. But it goes even further than that. You know, I mean, we're trying to run the ranch as a business, but there's a lot of components out there, especially in terms of dealing with rules, regulations, policy, perception, consumer interests. I mean, the list goes on. And so being able to further educate ourselves on a lot of those topics, I mean, I think that's what's going to continue to keep our operation successful, but not only our operation, but ranching in general successful for many generations to come.
I know we've got to speak before, and I think it was last year at NCBA, and I could go down the rabbit hole of you being a female in this industry, but you don't even look at it like that because you are surrounded by great mentors and people alongside you, and you also mentor others. But so talk about that and what that means to you to have a support system the way you have one.
Yeah, you know, I look back over my path that I've taken, you know, both in ranching and in the volunteer and leadership world, and it's something like I could not have done it alone. There are so many amazing people along the way that have been supportive and pushed and shoved and maybe cussed when needed, and it's something that I'm very, very grateful and blessed to have. But at the same time, it's so important to pass that on. You know, I mean, having the opportunity to be here, and we see these demographics changing all the time, especially when I go into colleges or universities and speak to things like animal science clubs or block and bridle clubs, and we're starting to see more and more females come up through that. And I want to make sure that they have every single opportunity that maybe I didn't have. But at the end of the day, what's so important to me is we've got to make our industry better. And we have to make sure that we keep a positive perception around how we're doing things. And not only that, but there's so much producer infighting nowadays. So the more I feel that we can educate and push back on those that are trying to bring down our industry, I think it does nothing but propel us forward overall.
Absolutely. I know you're such a great advocate, and you're always continuing your education on our industry. Speak to the international side of things a little bit more, because I find that to be fascinating and very interesting.
Thanks. So the international component is something that I got into about 20 years ago. You know, I'd never traveled overseas until my mid-20s to another country, and then my first experience was to Russia, Ukraine, and Poland to study agriculture with the Nebraska LEAD program. And since then, it's been a whirlwind. Somebody asked me in a podcast a couple weeks ago how many countries, and I actually had to add it up, and I think it's been over 30 countries where I've been able to visit producers, visit packing plants, you know, speak on behalf of the ag industry, and talk to rule makers and policy people, and it's been amazing. But why is it important? You know, and I think that's the question I get asked a lot, is because the U.S. depends on our market system and our trade systems, and you know, that import-export piece is huge, not only for me as a producer, but all producers in the U.S. So understanding how trade works, you know, understanding what other countries are doing in their supply chain production, you know, what are they utilizing in terms of traceability, in terms of data program, in terms of new technology that's coming down the pipeway that maybe we haven't heard of here in the U.S. You know, I've said it time and time again, the one thing that the U.S. does better than any other country in the world is we're efficient.
Wow.
But if we, at the end of the day, if we don't start looking at some of those great things those other countries are doing, they're not only going to catch up to us, they're going to surpass us. And I do not want that to happen on my watch.
Yeah. For anybody that's watching at home, they're like, man, look at her. She's had so many opportunities, but you've went out there and you've made those opportunities happen for yourself. There might be women who are watching this at home who aren't on a ranch or maybe don't want to go back to a ranch. What encouraging words can you give them or advice could you give them that they could still be involved in agriculture in many different facets?
Well, I think anyone can be involved in agriculture for the simple fact that we eat.
Yep.
You know, and we have to not only understand where our food comes from, but we need to support those that are producing our food. And so to me, it doesn't matter your demographic, where you came from, what your interest is. You know, I mean, as long as you're willing to go out and not only educate yourself, but ask questions, but also make sure that you listen to those people that are having those conversations. I mean, that's the important part. And you know, we've had people get involved in our business that have never set foot on an operation, and down the path, they become partners in our entities. So, I mean, it's so cool to see. There's so many opportunities out there, but people have to be willing to take that first step.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, thank you so much. You're such a wealth of knowledge. I feel like we could sit here and chat all day because you're just, I mean, it's amazing to see what not only you do for women in the industry, but the industry as a whole. So thank you so much for chatting with us here at
Thanks,
RFD-TV.
Kirby.